A phantom in the sky. The enemy saw it, thought they were under attack, but not a single round was fired. So what exactly were they running from? The late afternoon sun cast long, weary shadows across the runway of one of America's most strategically vital air bases. A lone A-10 Thunderbolt II, famously known as the Warthog for its robust, almost brutish appearance and formidable close-air support capabilities, rumbled to a halt. Its twin turbofan engines, usually a symphony of raw power, now winded down to a tired, defeated murmur. As the dust settled, so did a wave of hushed whispers and curious glances. Completely Winchester, not a single shot fired. This was highly irregular, almost unheard of, especially when the mission brief had been clear: a high-value convoy under a brutal ambush saved against all odds. The paradox hung heavy in the air, fueling the unspoken question on everyone's mind. So what exactly were they running from? Captain Lena Petrova slowly unbuckled her harness, the intricate straps feeling heavier than usual against her fatigued frame. Her face, usually a canvas of sharp focus, was now streaked with dust and exhaust residue, emphasizing the deep lines of exhaustion around her piercing brown eyes. Her dark, usually neatly tied hair had escaped her helmet, fanning wildly around her face. Despite her comparatively small and slender build, a stark contrast to the hulking brute of the A-10 she commanded, her amber gaze still held a flicker of steel, a testament to an intellect that often went unacknowledged. Mechanics and fellow pilots approached, their curiosity a palpable force, their expressions a mix of confusion and thinly veiled skepticism. The weapons systems technician, performing his routine post-flight check, confirmed the A-10's ordnance status. "Winchester," he declared, his voice tinged with disbelief. The confirmation of the convoy's rescue had come through. The enemy had indeed retreated. But the glaring inconsistency gnawed at them. How? Radar recordings, later scrutinized in the command center, only deepened the enigma. They showed the enemy forces in full retreat, a chaotic scramble away from the designated ambush site. Yet the A-10's telemetry confirmed 0 munitions expended. Captain Lena Petrova had returned with a Winchester status, and the whispers about her empty armament bays spread like wildfire through the base. The question that echoed in every corner, from the officers' mess to the maintenance hangars, remained stubbornly unanswered. So what exactly were they running from? This video isn't just about the A-10 as a formidable war machine. It's about how, in the right hands, it can become a master of deception. This is not merely the story of an aircraft, but the profound tale of a woman's unwavering intellect and unyielding courage. Let's rewind a few intense hours, to the very heart of the mission that would defy all military logic. Captain Lena Petrova was high above a desolate, sun-baked landscape, nestled within the armored cockpit of her A-10 Thunderbolt II. Her call sign, Gray Horse, felt almost ironic against the backdrop of her current predicament. She was on her way back to base, the routine mission almost complete. The fuel gauge was teetering precariously on the red line, a stark reminder of the miles still to cover. And indeed, her ammunition was definitively at 0, all ordnance expended on earlier targets. A standard operation winding down. But then an urgent, crackling transmission tore through her headset, a desperate plea that instantly shattered the routine. Gray Horse, emergency, convoy ambushed near Bravo Overpass, taking heavy enemy fire. The command center, usually a hive of controlled chaos, exploded into frantic activity. The air controller's voice, strained with urgency, crackled in Liana's ear. "Gray Horse, what's your status? Do you have ordnance?" Liana's response was sharp, precise, and laced with a hint of grim reality. "Winchester, sir, fuel critical." The panic in the tower was now palpable, almost audible through the static. "Gray Horse, you are forbidden to engage. Return to base immediately. Repeat, do not engage." The order was unequivocal, born of protocol and the brutal reality of an unarmed aircraft against an active ambush. But Liana, her focus now razor-sharp, could hear the desperate, fading cries for help from the convoy. The military convoy, carrying vital supplies and personnel, was caught in a deadly, unforgiving trap. And to make matters worse, a towering, ominous dust storm was rapidly approaching, threatening to completely obliterate visibility and snuff out any last hope of rescue. A blinding flash of insight, a spark of audacious defiance ignited in Captain Petrova's mind. To return meant condemning the convoy to certain death. To disobey orders meant facing a likely court-martial, the end of her promising career. In that pivotal moment, all of Lena's rigorous military training, every ounce of her exceptional piloting skill, and above all, her profound, unshakable respect for human life converged into a single undeniable decision. She firmly, resolutely turned the nose of her A-10, her gray horse, not towards the safety of the base, but towards the forbidden zone marked by the tower, the treacherous, unforgiving canyon terrain where the ambush raged. The deep guttural hum of her aircraft's engines, usually a symbol of destruction, now became the defiant roar of her rebellion. The canyon itself was a formidable opponent. Its narrow, sheer rock faces, rising hundreds of feet, made it a death trap for any aircraft attempting complex maneuvers. The swirling sandstorm had reduced visibility to near zero, turning the landscape into a swirling vortex of ochre and gray. But Lena, with a mind sharper than any tactical computer, saw her A-10 not merely as a war machine, but as an orchestra of psychological warfare. She had no ammunition, but the A-10 possessed something equally, if not more terrifying, its infamous roaring engine noise, a sound synonymous with brutal, overwhelming close air support. And crucially, there was the unique amplifying acoustics of the canyon itself. Her strategy was a daring masterpiece of deception. First, she dropped into one of the canyon's narrowest points, flying dangerously low. The characteristic deep, almost primal growl of the A-10's twin turbofan engines, amplified by the confined space of the canyon, reverberated like the monstrous roar of an unseen beast. The enemy, initially startled, suddenly found themselves on edge. Then, with split-second timing, Lena began deploying flares in rapid succession. These countermeasures, typically used to decoy heat-seeking missiles, became, in this dark and dust-choked environment, blinding, momentary bursts of light and heat that utterly disoriented the enemy. It was a calculated visual overload designed to make them believe a full-scale air assault involving multiple aircraft had suddenly begun. Lena continued her intelligent and audacious maneuvers. She rapidly ascended and descended, performing seemingly erratic yet perfectly controlled climbs and dives, coupled with sudden, jarring changes in engine power. This created a cacophony of sound and movement that completely scrambled the enemy's perception. Every sudden roar, every flash of light made them believe that tons of ordnance were moments away from raining down upon them. The enemy, caught completely off guard by this silent assault, descended into pure chaos. Their own radar screens, while showing only a single A-10, couldn't reconcile that singular data point with the overwhelming auditory and visual illusion that convinced them they were under heavy artillery fire or a multi-aircraft attack. Panic set in. Their command and control structure crumbled under the sheer psychological pressure. Enemy forces, utterly convinced they were facing annihilation, began to withdraw in disarray without firing a single retaliatory shot. The sudden silence from the convoy's radio, followed by the bewildered and then relieved voices of its personnel, was the ultimate confirmation of Lena's unprecedented success. The enemy had retreated. The convoy was safe, every vehicle intact, not a single life lost. Captain Petrova, without expending a single round, armed only with her intellect and her masterful command of her aircraft, had achieved an unbelievable victory. But this triumph had its price. The A-10's fuel gauge now stubbornly pointed to zero. The fuel warning light, a stark red alarm, flickered relentlessly in the cockpit. Lena, engulfed in the heart of the raging dust storm, had no choice but to attempt an emergency landing on a desolate, sand-covered salt flat. The landing was violent, a bone-jarring impact. The aircraft's fuselage dug deep into the soft sand. Its mighty wings groaned and bent under the strain, and the landing gear crumpled beneath it. The air was thick with the acrid smell of dust, metal, and expended jet fuel. But through the chaos and impact, Lena was alive, and her mission, against all odds, was truly complete. Captain Petrova, her body aching with exhaustion, painstakingly dragged herself out of the mangled cockpit. Her beloved aircraft, Grey Horse, lay embedded in the sand, a defeated giant, yet still defiant in its silence. The world around her was a swirling, opaque desert, visibility swallowed by the storm. Pulling out her satellite phone, she made the call to base, her voice strained but clear. Captain Petrova, Grey Horse, forced landing, sending coordinates. Convoy secured, minor damage, ammunition Winchester. The voice on the other end, initially laced with shock, then melted into a mixture of profound relief and bewildered admiration. The command center was overjoyed by her survival, but already grappling with the extraordinary implications of her action. Hours later, a dedicated rescue team finally reached Lena's remote salt flat. The state of the A-10 corroborated Lena's incredible narrative. The aircraft had indeed sustained significant structural damage from the rough landing, but its formidable weapon systems were completely intact, and its ammunition bays were, as reported, utterly empty. The radar recordings from the mission were meticulously re-examined. The data was unequivocal. Enemy forces had indeed panicked and dispersed at the A-10's presence, yet the aircraft itself had not discharged a single weapon. This revelation completely baffled the command center. How, they grappled, could an unarmed aircraft have single-handedly repelled an entire enemy unit? The logical conclusion defied every military doctrine they knew. When Lena finally returned to base, she stepped into an atmosphere thick with conflicting emotions. On one side, Captain Carter, the convoy commander, and the grateful drivers of the rescued convoy looked at her with looks of profound, silent appreciation. Their faces reflected an unspoken debt. On the other side, however, stood the formidable figures of high-ranking commanders, their expressions stern, ready to interrogate her for her clear act of insubordination. The chilling threat of a court-martial hung heavy, a palpable tension in the air. In the austere confines of the interrogation room, Captain Petrova stood resolute before Colonel Davies, the command center commander, his face a mask of official gravity. "Captain Petrova," Colonel Davies began, his voice taut with suppressed anger, "you overtly defied direct orders. You entered a dangerous combat zone while completely unarmed. Explain yourself. Why?" Lena, her posture erect, her voice calm and remarkably self-assured, recounted every detail of the improbable mission. She meticulously described how she had weaponized the thunderous roar of her A-10's engines, how she had strategically deployed flares, not as defensive measures, but as calculated instruments of visual and psychological warfare. She explained how she had exploited the canyon's unique acoustics to amplify the illusion of overwhelming force, how she had masterfully played on the enemy's psychology, sowing panic and confusion. Every word she uttered was a testament to her profound military genius and her singular, unparalleled intellect. Colonel Davies and the other commanders, initially skeptical, were utterly transfixed by Lena's detailed, flawless, and almost poetic account. This was no mere pilot's lucky maneuver. This was the calculated masterpiece of a brilliant strategist, a keen psychologist, and indeed an artist of aerial deception. Lena hadn't simply bluffed, she had meticulously crafted a convincing illusion of a full-scale attack, a perception so real it had shattered the enemy's resolve. As the commanders meticulously cross-referenced radar recordings, convoy reports, and Lena's astonishing testimony, the complete picture emerged, a narrative so incredible it bordered on the unbelievable. Finally, after a long contemplative silence, Colonel Davies took a deep, measured breath. "Captain Petrova," he stated, his voice now softened with a profound shift in tone, Your defiance of orders is undeniable. However, you successfully rescued a convoy without expending a single round and, crucially, prevented any loss of life. Such an achievement is, frankly, exceptionally rare in our military history. The air of disciplinary action had dissipated, replaced by an atmosphere of immense, almost reverent appreciation. Captain Lena Petrova's story swiftly transformed into a legend, echoing through the halls of the base and even resonating in the distant corridors of the Pentagon. Her impossible flight with Greyhorse became a case study, prompting a fundamental rethinking of military tactics and the very definition of aerial combat. Lena was not merely a lifesaver. She was a living, breathing testament to the profound power of intellect on the battlefield. She never graced headlines, nor was she publicly honored in grand ceremonies. But she left behind a battleground eerily silent, an enemy routed by an unseen force, and a question that continued to echo without an answer. So what exactly were they running from? This question became the lasting whisper of Captain Petrova's quiet courage and her unwavering determination to always do what was right, regardless of the circumstances or the cost. True heroes are not always visible. Some remain only a powerful, enduring whisper of a legend. This story proves that the greatest victories sometimes come from the most unexpected places. If you love inspiring and thought-provoking stories like this, join our community by subscribing to our channel. What are your thoughts on Amelia's determination and intuition? Don't forget to share your comments below. Your feedback enriches the Truth in the Mirror channel.